Hello and welcome to Understanding If Statements, Local Storage, and Syntax to create a rock, paper, scissors game. Right now on screen, I have my HTML and CSS setup. I have my rock, my paper, my scissors. I have my images, and then I also have a hover effect where the player's choice has a red outline. And then as you can see, moving further, we have the computer move, wins, losses, and ties. And that's just the HTML and CSS setup. So understanding if statements. If statements are conditional statements or code that performs based off different conditions. This means, or one such example of different conditions is true or false. Perform set A if true, perform set B if false. If statements and else if statements are written like this. You have the syntax if, and then in parentheses you have whatever your conditions are. And then you have your curly brackets, and in the curly brackets, just like with your function, it's the code to be executed. So this would be the first set of conditions. And then my else if statement would be a new set of conditions with new code to be executed. And then you could also add a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, and you do that by continuing with the else if. And then this is my third last set of conditions and the curly brackets, and then as I was saying earlier, it would be code to be executed. Moving forward, understanding local storage. So local storage and the set item method is a syntax to store an item with a value onto the browser's built-in local storage. So it would store onto Firefox, Google Chrome, Safari, based on the browser that you're using. And here's some of the syntax for it. So you have the literal word local storage, and then you have your member operator dot set item. Now next in the parentheses is a key name. So the key name is anything that you want to type. I just typed the word key name, and then comma, and now you have a value. The value could be a lot of things, but it's generally not just something you type. Sometimes there is a bit more syntax to it. So now storage also only supports storing and retrieving strings, leaving us to convert to other data types. So that's local storage, and that's the set item method. So last, we have understanding syntax. So syntax, we have our object and the method. It's written object, member operator, and method plus the parentheses. As you can see here, as we've been talking about, we have the local storage, that's the object. And then we have the member operator, this dot right here. This is to remove item, whereas previously we had set item. And that's another built-in syntax of JavaScript, not something that we as the coder types in for ourselves. So I'll go back to remove, so remove item. And then we also, what we have generally speaking is document as our object, and then our member operator with our method of write this time. So this would make us write straight to the DOM, and it would erase everything else. So it could be like, once you click on this function, I want you to document.write, and it'll completely erase the DOM, and then it will write and produce whatever you wrote. So like I was saying before, local storage, the object, dot the member operator, and then remove item, the method. So that's understanding syntax. Let's start off writing our script. First, we want to do a couple of things. We want to be able to create the computer move. We want to be able to choose our own move. So let's start that first. Let's document that get element by ID. And the element we want to get by ID is rock for the very first choice. And then on that, on the rock, we want an on click with a function. And the function is going to be the start of the computer move as well. So let computer move, this is something unique I'm typing, equal math.random. Math.random gives you a number between 0 and 1, and that could be a decimal. Okay, so we got the math.random, and we have the on click. Let's console.log computer move and go back and refresh the page, inspect, go to console. So what I want basically is when I click on the rock, I want, okay, so here's what we have so far. Our computer move is giving us a random number between 0 and 1, and as you can see here, every time I click on it, I'm getting a random number. So this is going to be perfect. What we're going to do, we're going to outfit it, so that way when you get a number between 1 and free, it would either be 0 for rock, 1 for paper, and then 2 for scissors. So let's go ahead and do that right now. I'm gonna refresh. So we have our document that get element by ID, the rock, and then on click, we want our function to start. And the function, one of the parts of the function is to create the computer move math.random, but this gives us a random number between 0 and 1. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna do math.floor to round it, and then math capital M dot random. So math.floor, in parentheses math.random. Forget my last parentheses, and then we're gonna times it by free. So let's get started. We're gonna times it by free. So now we want to get started with our if statement, and here's how it's gonna work. So we have if, and then if computer move is equal to 0, here's what I want to be performed. I want computer move to display rock. Else, if computer move equals to 1, I want it to computer move display paper. Let me move console.log a bit further. And then else if my conditions, the last one, computer move equals 2, and computer move display scissors. Alright, so let's double check everything. And then I have the computer move console log as well. We've updated the math.random, so instead of a number between 0 and 1, which is a percentage point, which is a decimal point, we have math.floor to round out the number, and then we times it by free. But using JavaScript, it always starts with 0, it doesn't start with 1. So we go back here and refresh, on click for the rock, scissors, scissors again, paper, and rock. So we have all our choices. We have scissor, paper, and rock. Now if I were to comment out the code and refresh, you see whereas before we had a decimal point with a lot of numbers, it's now just 1, 0, 1, 0, and 2. Now, with the code working again, as we are now, we could already start to add to the stats, we could already start to add to the score, and we could already define a computer move here on the DOM instead of having to console log it. Because what we have is already, I'm choosing rock, and then the computer is choosing something else. And then if we compare the two, we'll just get our answer for the wins, the losses, and the tie, and we'll be able to add it up. So okay, I'm going to refresh it again. I'm going to go back to the code, and here is what we're going to do. We are going to create another variable, and we're going to say let result equal an empty string. It doesn't have to equal anything right now. We could just say let result. And then with rock, we're basically going to type in what the score will be if the computer were to choose and we were to choose. So right now results equal tie, because that's rock and rock. Right now we're only working on rock, so everything should be super simple. Result, this is paper, rock loses to paper, so this is going to be a loss. Result equal rock beats scissors, so that's going to be a win. Now for each of these, we want to show the computer move here. So we're going to have to do a document that get element by ID, and then do an inner HTML, so that way we don't have to console.log it. We could see it on the DOM together with the game. So that's going to be document Anyway, and I'm going to type this now, get element by ID. The name of the element would be computer move, the ID. So we have computer move again. Dot inner text, and that's going to equal backticks. This is just something I'm typing now. Now here's some more syntax. $, curly brackets, computer move. This is the variable that I defined earlier, which is equaling to math.floor.random. So we could we could get a random number between 1 and 3, and then use that to place either scissors, rock, or paper on each of the individual numbers. And then I'm going to put $, back to result. And result, as you can see here, it's another variable that I created. And then within my if statement, each set of conditions with code to be executed has a result that will signify what happened in the game. So this result would be a tie, this result would be a loss, and this result would be a win. So I could copy and paste this whole thing. Actually, I'm missing something, the last backtick. So I'll read it again. Document.getElementById, computer move. Computer move is right here. Then .inner text, and that's going to equal, this is something we wrote, .computer move, the variable right here, with result, the variable right here. All right, perfect. So let's refresh. Let's click on it. Okay, so inspect, something's off. Let's see, 87. So I put computer mover instead of computer move. Let's refresh this again. See, okay, so now we see it. Computer move scissors. So it's a win for the computer. Well, it's a win for us, actually. We're putting who's the win for. Computer move rock. It's a tie. Computer move scissors. Okay, so computer move paper, it's a loss. So we have all three. Where we're at now, let's refresh again. We already have basically our options, but right now we're only working on the rock option. So as you click on it, you will see that we basically have a good portion of the mechanics of the game already. We already have your move, we have the computer's move, and we have who wins. Now what we want to do is update the score, update the stats, and keep the stats updating even after we refresh. So here's how we go about adding to the score and making sure everything works as in the numbers increase. So if we go back to our code and we just familiarize ourselves with where we're at, what we want to do is before console.log, maybe, okay, yeah, so I'll keep it within the function. I'll put it next to the console.log, and we're going to do local storage.setItem. So that's the syntax. In my curly brackets, in my parentheses, I'm going to type in the word stats. You can type in the word score. And like I said, earlier in the video, this is going to be a JSON, going to be all caps, .stringify is going to be a value. And then score is going to be a unique variable. Yeah, score is going to be a unique variable that we are going to create right now. So if we go back up to the top where we have our variables, we're going to say let score equal JSON. Now we're using JSON and stringify because local storage only accepts strings. So we're going to have to do a bit of data transfer to get it working the way we want. And that's just the syntax for it. So that's just something you have to learn about. So JSON.parse, and it's going to be local storage again, .get item. The item we're going to get is the stats, just like I typed. Okay. Then my curly brackets, wins equal 0, comma, losses 0, comma, and then ties equal 0, comma. Okay, so that's my variable. Now what we want to do is to be able to retrieve the element on the HTML page and add to it. And here's how we've been retrieving HTML elements on the page by document dot get element by ID. The element we want to get is each is basically in my scoreboard, what I've labeled my scoreboard. I want to get the wins, I want to get the losses, and I want to get the ties. Each of these is a p tag with an ID. So let's just get the ID. So this one is tie, so let's get ties. So we can update the ties, and then we're going to do dot inner HTML, and that equals backticks. I'm typing in the word ties, and then $, score dot ties. So I'm going to do this for all of them. Instead of ties, this is going to be losses. So the ties is going to be losses, losses, this is going to be wins, wins, wins. Alright, everything seems fine so far. Now let us add a number associated with it. So I'm going to do score.ties plus equals 1. So every time we get a tie, I want score.ties to plus equal 1. And I also want it to be written onto the document so we could see it instead of console logging. So for this one, it's going to be score.losses plus equal 1. So every time we hit these conditions, so if computer moves equals 0, I want the computer move to then display rock. I want the results to be tie. I want to also get the element on the page called computer move, and I want to write out to it what the computer move is and what the result is. And then next for the scoreboard, I want to get the element on the page, ties, where it's displayed, and I want it to be updated with the score, and the score should start from 0, and then we do a plus equal 1. So it will be incremented by 1 each time. So this one's losses. Now the last one is going to be score.wins plus equal 1. Let's go back to our game. Let's refresh. Let's on click. Let's see what happens. Okay, so right now I clicked on it. We got computer move paper. I chose rock, so it's a loss. And then our losses got updated by 1. So with the local storage, it saves the information that you had from a previous refresh. So it's not starting from 0, but yours should start from 0. So I'm just going to continue to make sure that all my options work out the same exact way. So I'm going to keep clicking. Okay, so now I chose rock, the computer chose scissors, that's a win. And then I chose rock, the computer chose rock, and that's a tie. So as you can see, all the scores are updated. The element here also shows the computer's choice and what the game ended up being. And this is all stuff that we typed. And then we have the rock, we have the paper, we have the scissors. All we've done is rock so far. If you want to complete the game, basically all you got to do is copy and paste. And you see here where I say get element by ID and do an on click instead of rock. Let me see what I typed in. You would do paper. And that's how you would get the next couple, or at least that's how I would code the next two. I would code the paper and scissors like this, and then I'll just go in. So where it says the computer move is rock, instead of the result being tie, so I'm choosing paper and they're choosing rock, the result would be win. And then the computer move, all of this, instead of this being ties, it would be wins, it would be wins, and it would be wins. So basically you would have to go through and you would just have to change up the type so it matches perfectly with how the rock, paper, scissors game is actually played, and then you'll have your game completed. So that's it for me. This was understanding if statements, local storage, and syntax to create rock, paper, scissors game mechanics. And this is where we're at.